What's your worst I got rejected story? I'd gotten back together with my high school sweetheart. We were living in separate cities, but seeing each other often. Around Christmas, he proposed to me, and I excitedly agreed. On New Year's, he suggested we meet in San Francisco. That afternoon, New Year's Day 1990, we were sitting in a Korean restaurant, and after eating, he excused himself to go to the bathroom and never came back. I sat in my seat for nearly 20 minutes before asking the hostess about him. She told me he paid the check and left a while ago. We never married, obviously, and we didn't even speak again for years. He did eventually offer up some lame excuse, but it left a mark on my confidence for years. What happened? Story 2. I posted this a while back, but it got buried. I moved to a new office a few years back, and within a month, I was messing with a coworker. We went out a bunch, got intoxicated, and made out, but never had intimacy or were officially boyfriend or girlfriend. One weekend, she asked me to come to Reno for her birthday with a couple of friends. One of her long-lost guy friends met up with her while we were there, and she ignored me for basically the whole trip. The last night we were there, she was ignoring me at a club. So I decided to branch out and meet another woman. We had an amazing night. Talking, drinking, and near the end of the night, making out pretty heavily. We had driven to Reno from Idaho, about 9 hours. Most awkward drive ever. With a combo of her complaining and her silent the whole way. We worked together for another year before she actually moved away. I started a long-distance relationship with a clubbing chick, and she's now my wife of 2 years and mother of her daughter. Story 3. I knew a guy who had been dating his girlfriend for about 4 years and decided he was ready to commit. But when he popped the question, he wanted the whole shebang. He reserved a table at a restaurant that had a live band, and he made plans with the manager of the place such that he would excuse himself at the end of dinner, go up on stage, grab the mic, and propose in front of everybody. He even shelled out for a cameraman to record the whole thing. So, he took his girl out to this restaurant on their 4th year anniversary. Everything perfectly prepared. It was going to be awesome. Except when he asked, he didn't get an answer. She just started this nervous giggle, and after a few minutes of it, she asked him to get down so that they could go outside and talk. I've seen the video. It was pretty bad. Oof. A moment of silence for a fallen comrade. Story 4. She was my first serious girlfriend in high school. We met at church and had known each other for a couple of years before we started dating. Her life had become pretty messy. Her parents were going through a trial separation, and she needed an emotional anchor in her life. Someone steady and reasonable. Why she chose me, I don't know. Maybe it looked like I've had it all together, but what teenager does? It didn't help that I complained about her habit of hugging everyone. Sure, she was friendly, but I was getting to the point of being ridiculous. When I complained, she got upset. She dumped me in the night of Christmas Day. I was crushed. Completely heartbroken. But over the next couple of weeks, I started pulling the pieces together again. Then she called me, crying, and said she'd made a terrible mistake and wanted to get back together with me again. And for a month, it was fine, and I was very happy again. Out of nowhere, she dumped me again. On Valentine's Day. Crap. This time I was only very sad, not crushed. Started building scar tissue. She called me again, about a month later, and started hinting that she wanted to get back together again. I shut that down cold and left her crying and yelling at me as I hung up the phone. We didn't talk again for 5 years. During the interim, I had joined the Air Force, went through training, and served 2 tours in Korea and was starting a tour in Okinawa, Japan. I just got married to a wonderful Korean woman. And then the phone rang. It was my old girlfriend. She'd gotten my number from my mother. Thanks, Mom. I called to tell me her sob story of how she just got divorced from her husband of 3 years and wanted to know if I was interested in her. I shut her down and told my wife what had just happened. The next time she called, my wife answered and gave her an earful. Who dumps people on Valentine's Day? Who dumps their boyfriend on Christmas? You're a very bad person. Stop calling my husband. I still chuckle when I remember that. She didn't call back after that. I want that kind of girlfriend. Story 5. I dated a girl once who was a little socially off. We had been together for about 4 months or so, and things were, at best, rocky. On this particular day, she decided that a shout fest was the best way to communicate her general displeasure with me. Me, being the smart guy that I am, decided that it was time to end it. So I broke up with her. This resulted in a fit of hysteria and more yelling. Now, she didn't have a car that day, but her sister was in the area. It being a 100-plus day, I offered that she come back to the house so that she isn't outside overheating. Even saying she could be at the opposite end of the house and wouldn't have to see me. Well, her answer was to jump out of my moving car while taking a corner at about 30 miles per hour, 48.203 kilometers per hour. I slam on my brakes as she rolls out onto the freakishly hot pavement. She got a 5.4 on my Olympic scale of car escapes. There's nothing graceful about it. I make sure she's okay and figure she is as she sprints to a row of bushes. Soon after, she disappears by squatting into the hedges to never be seen again. Be honest, were you dating a raccoon? Story 6. The guy told me to meet him at the movie theater for a date. I showed up at the time we decided on, but he was an hour late, so I ended up missing the movie I wanted to see. I had to wait another hour to catch a good film, and it just so turned out he forgot his wallet. I paid for our tickets. I usually pay for just my own as well as his drink and enjoy the movie. When it was over, I bid him farewell, but he told me he didn't have a ride home. I offered to drive him to the other side of town to his mother's house. Turns out he was 8 years older than me. I was 19 and met him in a junior college class. Thought we were around the same age. His license was taken away because of recurring DUIs and that he thought Star Trek was for fags. I dropped him off and he apologized for making me be the woman gentleman. Closed my car door, drove back home, and that was the end of that. The date sucked, but at least someone thinks I'm a gentleman. Story 7. Not exactly a date. I had this friend, one whom I used to be quite close with. I'm a guy, friend is a girl. We were supposed to meet up for dinner at a fairly nice place. I just came from work, so I was dressed in a suit. Sit down, wait a while. Waitress asks me if I'm waiting for somebody. I smile and nod. I texted a friend, confirmed the date the day before, and asked her if she was still coming. No answer. The waitress comes back a few times with a slightly sadder face every time. I tried to call the friend a few more times. No answer. Waitress felt sorry for me. Gave me a few extra bottles of beer in the house, and I had a very fancy meal on my own. I've not spoken to that friend again. I hope flakers get flaked on 3 times more than they flake people. Story 8. I was talking or dating, whatever, to this girl while I was in high school. One night on the phone, she tells me she feels bad because she lied to me about something. I ask her what, and she said that when she told me she had only ever messed around with 2 guys before, that she was lying. It was actually 10 guys and 2 girls. Now, I'm a pretty laid-back dude, so I didn't care. She was really upset and kept saying, I bet you think I'm a and stuff like that. So, in a stupid attempt to make her feel better, I thought I would open up some of my secrets to her. So I tell her I am bisexual, and then she goes, oh, I don't really think that is attractive, like, at all. And then we broke up and stopped talking. Whatever, and that was that. Took me a few years to be able to come out to anyone again. The hypocrisy is crazy. Story 9. Ex-boyfriend proposed to me over the phone, and I initially nervously giggled, which he took as a yes, and he started to plan everything. I was 18. Give me a break. I finally got up the courage to say that really wasn't what I wanted from my life, and I was sorry, but we are done. And I even said that I hope he finds what he wants, it's just not me. He told me he had $800 saved for a ring and told his parents. Why would you spring that on someone like that? He then proceeded to tell my rather conservative parents all about things I do on weekends, such as partying and having intimacy, etc. Needless to say, my life got very interesting after that. He continued to text friends for months afterwards, asking where I was. I was not a happy camper. Story 10. I posted this before, but here goes. I live in a small college town and go to a research school with a 7-to-1 male-to-female ratio. The first day from someone on OkCupid, she picked me up, we had lunch and a drink at Applebee's. She looks larger than she did in the pictures, but that wasn't really the problem. After the meal, she suggests we go to her friend's place to smoke some grass and watch cheesy 80s horror movies, so I obviously am game. So we go to her friend's place, grass is to be had, movie is coming along swimmingly well. Her friends go to bed eventually, and we start doing it on the couch. Then she starts telling me that she has a narrow window of opportunity for getting pregnant because she has some sort of cervical cancer. She wants to be a mom so badly. 1 kid is all she needs to give her existence a purpose, and so on. Smoked out me does not catch the drift immediately. Then she starts telling me about how I probably have good genes, a mensa, and I would not have to even see the kid, and how she will leave me out of it all, etc. I'm horrified. I tell her I don't ever want to have kids, leave alone with someone I had just met. She starts yelling and screaming and throws me out at 2 a.m. in the middle of winter, and I walk home. 7 miles. If I were you, I would have agreed and made her pay. Story 11. Work with a really cute girl. Always flirting with her, ask her out for drinks. Meet her at a pool hall. Play a few rounds, she doesn't drink. Let her win. Okay, so she kicked my bum legitimately, off to a bar. Sit down for food. Later that night, hookah bar, coffee. At 1 a.m. back at the bar, I've paid for everything. She asks how I want this night to end. I say a kiss and a promise for another date. She informs me that she didn't think we were on a date. Never saw her again. Didn't look that good in your sundress anyway, Elise. Screw you. Bro. Bro's butthurt. Story 12. I had a giant crush on this guy that lived about an hour away from my town, so anytime we'd hang out, I'd end up staying over. At first it was party, make out, sleep. After a while, it got more serious, and I had several days off work, so we decided I'd stay over with him for around 4 days. First day there, everything was normal. Second day was normal. Instead of the regular routine of party, make out, sleep, we had intimacy. Next day, he acted like I was some stranger in his house. Avoided eye contact, didn't talk to me. I was completely flabbergasted. Finally, I made him make eye contact with me, and I asked, "Insert name. Have you just completely lost interest in me now?" His response, "See, Rufus, you're way too good of a girl for me. I'll find someone better. But yes, I've just lost the chemistry." I just smiled, packed my stuff, and walked out to my car. He followed and said, "Taking this really well. I was expecting tears or something." I told him he wasn't worth my tears and to have a good day. In more words, surrounded by smiles. That's the best way you could have gone about it. Story 13. Alright. When I was a senior in high school, I was at a friend's party and met her brother's best friend. We hit it off right away and soon started dating. He was 22 and I was 18. I'd never had a very serious boyfriend before, and our relationship moved pretty fast. However, about 4 months into our relationship, I moved to another state to go to college. He hadn't gone to college, but seeing me go away to school inspired him to better himself, and he started taking classes at a community college nearby. Before I left, we had a long conversation and decided to take a break for a while. However, for the first week I was gone, we still talked on the phone for hours every day. Then I get a call from him saying that his dad is sick and he's worried about him, and his family was stressing him out, and that maybe we shouldn't talk for a while so he can get his crap together. I understood and agreed, as I had been relying on him and not getting to know anyone in my college. And 2 days later, I got a Facebook message. Tacked onto a thread titled, "I love you." It basically says he's met someone and they're getting serious and he wants to make sure everything's over between us. I'd left a week and a half before and we'd been broken up officially for less than 2 days. Story 14. So I was in 7th grade and had a crush for this girl. Back then I was this socially awkward kid who never asked out anybody. I usually would just stare at her like any other crush, but this time was different. I was pressured to the max by my friends, but I took the wuss insults. It took a turn for the worse when I was dragged to her locker by my friends. I knew there was no way out. I had to ask her out. "Hey, Ariel, I know this is a stupid attempt, but will you go to the dance with me?" "Sorry, Fozzie Bow 5, I won't." I leave in shame. Fast forward to the dance. I see my very own friend making out with her. Oh my god, that is rough, buddy. Story 15. I was talking to someone and going on a date since, heck, why not? He's in another city, so we talked about our schedules, distance, what to do, etc. Not even a week or two after talking about it, he starts acting really weird with hormones and crap. After a few days of this, I really didn't like where the communication was going and politely declined and said I'd rather not pursue anything with him. He started getting mad, saying that I was leading him on, etc. He comes out with, "Yeah, well, what would you do if I picked you up and took you away for a weekend, hey?" I questioned if he was intoxicated or stupid, and he went completely silent before asking half an hour later. "So if you said yes before and I have intimacy with you, it's still okay, right?" Tried to explain mistreatment to him and consent, but he kept asking. Ended up blocking him a few nights ago. Imagine having to explain mistreatment and consent to someone. That is just sad. Story 16. I started working at the beginning of the summer with one of the most beautiful girls I'd ever met. We hit it off right away and started hanging out all the time. She revealed to me that she had a boyfriend who she lived with, but they had been having a lot of problems. And he was away for the summer and things were getting worse all the time. I helped her through her relationship and she admits that she has feelings for me and says all these incredible things to me about how she's never met anyone like me and how she was falling for me, etc. Eventually, after some time, her and her boyfriend break up and we slowly start seeing each other and sleeping together. Everything was so perfect. We had amazing conversations and intimacy, and we would spend the night together holding each other. It was so amazing. We never really took the step into being in a relationship because things were still rocky with her ex. And she had a lot of stress with trying to find a new apartment and everything, so we were taking it slow. Last week, I went away for one night to see a concert in a nearby city. When I get back, she's super distant. Turns out my best friend, who had known this entire time that we were seeing each other and that she had feelings for me and vice versa, asked her on a date since she was single and she said yes. Now she's telling me that they've had feelings for each other for a while and that I was just some rebound or something. Anyway, this all happened today and I'm intoxicated enough to be typing this because I feel like crap that I've been betrayed by 2 people who I thought to be my best friends. Thanks for being a place to vent, Reddit. Never take a chance on people with low self-esteem because that's what they're going to do. Story 17. My junior year in high school. One of my best friends introduced me to one of her best friends. We started talking online and we're both really into one another. He drove to my school to meet me for the first time and hang out with me. Long drive. Everything went great. We made out like crazy in his car most of the night before he took me back to my school, boarding school. We got together a couple times after that, and he even came to my house to meet my parents. Well, prom was coming up, and he said he would go to my prom with me. I was so excited since I had really only had one boyfriend before him, and I got to get dressed up and look really nice. A few months later, 2 days before my prom, he decides to tell me he met another girl at home and won't be going to my prom with me. I cried so hard for weeks and almost didn't go to prom because I was so embarrassed. I told all my friends he was coming, got all excited, and then he cheated on me and dumped me. Dang. Story 18. Unfortunately, I'm the bad guy in my story. I was 15 and she was 16 and cute. She asked me to go to her house a few days before, and I agreed to go that Friday night. I had every intention of going. I liked this girl and wanted to get to know her, i.e. make out. Anyway, Thursday rolls around and another friend calls me and says she has and did I want to skip school the next day and take them? Heck yeah. I checked it out and they're an 8-hour trip. So I figured we'd go and trip good and early, and I'd be back to my normal self by that evening in time for my date. I discovered at around 4 or 5 that Friday evening, however, that it doesn't exactly work like that. Sure, they were wearing off and I wasn't tripping anymore, but I was still spiked. I couldn't think in a straight freaking line, never mind walk or talk one. I was not fit for a date. I was getting more and more tired and all I wanted to do was sleep. I finally made it home at around 6 or 7 and was laying in my bed, half dozing, half panicking about what to say to this girl, when the phone rang. It was her. She asked if I was still going to her place, and all I could say, and I'm cringing even now, 18 years later, was that I was really tired and couldn't go. I've done and said some stupid things to too many good people in my life, and this is one of my biggest regrets. She was lovely and I blew it before I'd even started. Story 19. So I met this really cool girl about 2 years ago at a bar on St. Patrick's Day. We exchanged numbers and decided to go out again in 2 weeks or so. We would talk on the phone, once every other day or so, and via text message, not constantly. So the night of the day came about and she came down to my house and we ended up going bowling with my best friend and his wife. Just so it wasn't too awkward. We had a great time and she ended up calling me the next day saying how she had the best time she's had in a while and it felt like I've known you forever. Fast forward to a week or so later. We're still talking and plan to meet up at the opening day for our MLB team in our state. I call her and no answer. I actually end up running into her by accident at a random bar with all her friends around. She looks at me and totally acts like she's never seen me before. She could have been totally hammered. I didn't stay around to find out. She later calls me that night and tells me, "We're taking things too fast." I never talked to her again. Sometimes people need time to process a relationship, you know? If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 20. Funny that you mentioned this because I was stood up just 2 nights ago. A friend of a friend asked me if I wanted to catch a movie and dinner after my soccer game. We'd gone out a few times in the past, but not for about 7 months, so this was out of the blue. I don't have much of a social life, so I saw this as a pleasant change. Unfortunately, I don't live in the city, so it was an hour's drive to get to the cinema, at which point I discovered a recent text on my phone. "Really sorry, but I have to take care of an emergency." I spent the next hour driving back home wondering if I should feel sorry for myself. I even wore my nice pants. Should have worn your brown pants. Story 21. More tragic than anything. Met a cool chick online. Went on, perhaps, the best first date ever. Made some very forward comments about my awesome kissing and the desirability of a sleepover later in the week. And then, nothing. I played it cool. "Whatever," I said. 2 weeks and nothing. I'm intoxicated and text that I can take a hint. A week or so later, a text wakes me up at like 3 a.m. "Sorry," she says. "The day after we went out, she got some bad news. The brain tumor she thought was in remission was back and spread to her brainstem. She apologized for being insensitive and said that she just needed to be with her family." Sounds like a monumental blow-off, I know, but it totally made sense, given a couple of over-casual comments she made about a serious illness a couple years before and the fact that she was clearly not a complete psychopath. At the time, I knew someone else with that exact problem. Megan must be gone now, and 2 years later, I can't bring myself to delete the email exchange. My condolences. Story 22. Last year, I fell head over heels for a girl. In my mind, I didn't really know, though. I was 16 and I was on a school trip to Italy. Elston Florence had the nerve to buy her a gallon Easter egg. It was around Easter and she wasn't on the trip. That cost a fair amount. I proceeded to give her it, to which she was thankful, but a couple of weeks later she said she had no interest and I was devastated. Being a dramatic teenager, I didn't know better. She then proceeded to further encourage everyone's general opinion of me as a creep and I started becoming a reject. It was clear that I was far from being considered her type. Fast forward a couple months and she's intoxicatedly eating the face off of most lads I know. Also, today, that aforementioned rejection has evolved so that I've been abandoned by my friends for the most part. I'm currently not a happy panda at all. Story 23. Oh, where to begin? On two separate occasions, one in high school, once in college, two different groups of friends thought it would be hilarious to convince me a girl had feelings for me. The college group even had a girl pretend to be her and talk to me on the phone. If nothing else, I've learned the idea of women being attracted to me is hilarious. There was the time I was supposed to be in a double date in college, but the girl I was supposed to be going out with invited around 8 or so other people along. She claimed later not to know it was a date, but when we set up the double date, she confirmed it was me she was going out with and not the other guy. Not really dating, per se, but there was the girl who wanted me to read Frankenstein in class since I looked like the monster. There was the blind date who wouldn't talk to me at all. I'm sure I'm repressing other stuff. I'll remember later. Some people are just so cruel. Story 24. Second year university. I asked out a girl that I have been crushing on for a year and a bit. Right after Christmas this year, she replies in what I take for a positive manner. I'm very flattered. Thank you. Of course, I would love to once classes start. Needless to say, I was ecstatic. So classes resume and we set a date, and the day of, she has an excuse. Project further behind than she anticipated. Okay, fine. So we rescheduled. The rescheduled date comes up and passes with a new excuse. Slept in and now won't be able to make it because she has a makeup class at the time. Again, understandable. Reschedule once more, thinking third time's the charm. It wasn't. Read it. I'm pretty clueless sometimes, but I'm also determined. She was so nice, and so some very naive part of me believed her excuses were real and not just blowing me off. I rescheduled this gorgeous girl a total of 12 times before we got something to work. After a Herculean effort, I get the date. It's going not too shabbily. We have the same interests. She laughed a bit. I laughed. I won't lie, I was by no means suave or a Lotharia, but I was holding my own in my own eyes. The date ends and we agreed to hang out again soon. However, the same occurrence, excuse after excuse. Finally, one night I'm just chatting with her via text and she tells me, oh, yeah, I don't get nervous around people because it just isn't worth it. I don't really get attached to people and I'm pretty much a hermit. A few more texts later, she spells it out. She proceeds to tell me she's not interested in dating as a concept in general. Still see her, still chat. She's still really friendly, really hot, and essentially the girl who walked out of my dreams. Still not interested. Keep at it, buddy. Story 25. The meetup was very casual and low-key. Just keeping it light and fun, no pressure. We chatted and flirted for a while and played some silly getting-to-know-you games. Finally, I asked her, so what made you agree to go on a date with me? She looked at me and said, oh, this isn't a date. This is more of a friend hangout. She just friend-zoned me on the first date. Later, she mentioned that her type was tall guys. I'm 5'8". I wanted to ask why she even agreed to go out with me in the first place, but that was nice. At the end of the evening, I wished her a good night and walked off shaking my head. Maybe she just wanted a free meal. As a 5'8" guy, I feel you, bro. Story 26. It was 8th grade. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was chubby and awkward. I was developing acne and a fondness for girls. I only ever talked to Wendy during band class, and it was generally just small talk. The winter formal was coming up in a few weeks. One day after band class, she was putting her saxophone away, and I somehow mustered up the courage to talk to her. Wendy, would you like to go to the formal with me? Eyeing me up and down with a look of disgust, she simply replied, ew, and walked away. I was crushed. I joined the track team, and the next year I joined the football team. I lost a lot of weight and got in great shape. Wendy and I became friends in high school. The new physique probably helped. To this day, she denies that she said it and claims she was probably just having a bad day. But I know what happened, and it ultimately made me better. Story 27. I wasn't getting intimacy for another 3 or 4 dates, and I think he knew it. Maybe this is my inexperience speaking here, but do people really go that serious into a relationship that quickly? Also, let me mention, I'm 23 and I've only had one girlfriend my whole life. Didn't get that one until I was 21 either. I feel like your luck isn't that bad when I can't bring myself to ask anyone out for constant fear of being rejected every single time. The worst part of it is the loneliness and fear of never finding someone who likes me for who I am. I accept the possibility that there's someone for me, maybe even multiple people, but I feel too afraid that women who share some of my interests would scoff at my other interests. Science nerd, video gaming, powerlifting, and playing various video game music on a piano. After having my ex dump me, I'm not sure people dig what I do. Feels bad, man. For what it's worth, I know 4 to 5 people who would dig that. Story 28. Not my story, but this just happened tonight. I was bartending at this new gig I've got. I've only been there a week or so, but there's this one guy who comes in every couple of days. Middle-aged, looks fairly well off, decent-looking guy. Anyway, tonight was his birthday, and he was supposed to be having a drink at this bar with this girl before going out. I was talking to him about it. He seemed pretty excited, as he really liked her. She was apparently all gung-ho for it and had known about it for weeks. Anyway, he's been here for 20 minutes or so and is starting to look somewhat confused. I see him trying via phone to figure out where she is and what's going on. Asking him about it, he responds by saying that she's not ready to leave yet, and a few other things about getting dressed or something. He orders a drink. Half an hour later, she's still not there, and he's looking steadily more dejected. He orders another drink. He waits, I kid you not, a total of 3 hours for this woman, before putting his head in his hands for a minute. I turn to talk to some other guests to give him some privacy. He calls me over a minute later and asks for a shot of Patron. Never orders shots. I accidentally pour him a double and only charge him for one of the drinks he had. Poor guy really seemed to care about the woman, and it seemed like she had totally ruined his birthday. I didn't know what else to do, so I wished him good luck. Hope he looks happier the next time he's in. Happy birthday. Story 29. Men are really confusing. It's like they only want one thing. Sorry to the guys that don't. I don't mean to offend anyone. I went out to happy hour with a few coworkers a few months ago. Well, after that was done, I hung out with one of the guys, and he confessed that he always had a crush on me. He was younger, so I was a little worried, but we hung out a few times after that. We talked every day after work. This went on for a few months. We were having a great time. Yes, we had intimacy. Well, I told him I wanted a relationship, and he said he wasn't ready since he went through a bad breakup, and he asked if we could just continue to do what we've been. I was okay with that until I found out last week he was spending the whole weekend with another coworker that lives out of state. What a slap in the face. Story 30. When I was in high school, there was this girl I was totally into. She had it all, including the attitude, but I didn't find out about that until later. I asked her out and she stood there, mulling it over for a little while and said yes. I was pretty stoked, mostly because I was 13 and an idiot. I had to call my money for my allowance and my paper route, and I got a cab to take me to her place and pick her up. When I asked her where she wanted to go, she said, the keg, which was totally extravagant to a teen. The waiter comes to take her order and she grins maliciously at me and says, I'll have the surf and turf with a whole lobster, not a half. Are you sure, ma'am? The waiter asks her. He's paying. The day was his idea, and I'm way out of his league, so he's going to have to step up his game if he thinks he's worthy of my time. The waiter shakes his head and turns to me. I'll have the same, I tell him. He shrugs and walks away. The rest of the time, the girl tells me about how disappointed she is in my choice of clothes. Cab company, how I'm such a loser at school and my friends are social bottom feeders, etc. I just eat my steak and lobster quietly, then excuse myself to go to the bathroom. She's almost giddy as I leave the table. Need some quiet time? Gonna cry? Show me what a broke loser you are. I called my mom to come and get me, washed my hands in the bathroom, thanked the hostess, and left the restaurant. Sadly, she didn't have to wash dishes to pay for her dinners. Her father came and bailed her out. Oh my God, she destroyed you, bro. My condolences. She's a terrible person. Story 31. I was at my place with a girl after we had been out on our third date. Previous two went well, and we got spiked, which worked well the previous date. Well, this time I had a bit too much, and as I was sitting there rocking out to music that wasn't playing, she joked that it looked like I was having a seizure and was going to leave. I assured her I was fine, but then decided to ask what she would do if I did have a seizure. Lay them on their side, let them ride it out, make sure they don't choke, and she decided she was tired and needed to go home. She stood me up in the next date, but for some reason I kept at it. I ultimately realized that she was too stupid to tell me that she was even leading me on anymore. Cute as heck, though. You might have scared her with all that. Story 32. I went on a date some years ago with a rather nice girl. Attractive, super fun. Everything was going awesome until she asked where I lived. I explained the area of town and stated that it was a trailer park. Now she thought the same thing all of you are right now. White trash living in a trailer. Wrong. This was a damn nice trailer. New carpet, tile flooring in both bathrooms and the kitchen. All new appliances. Combine that with my affinity or obsession for expensive electronics and furniture, and you've got a nice bachelor pad. Never got to learn the truth, though. Never returned a text or phone call. I talked with a friend who thought we'd be good together before we went on the date, who said he talked to her and she stated she couldn't be with someone who lived in a trailer. Fast forward some 6 to 7 months later, I was having a get-together, and sure enough, she showed up with the other friends. I recognized her, but didn't say anything. She didn't see me until after I overheard her ask, whose place is this? We ended up talking a bit, and I introduced her to my non-witchy girlfriend. You wouldn't have met your non-witchy girlfriend if that girl wasn't being a witch. Story 33. In high school, there was this girl who I really liked, and I thought she had a thing for me too, so I went for it and got her number. I knew where she worked and would occasionally stop by to see her and chat. Again, I was welcomed warmly. Eventually, I got around to asking her out. I was going to pick her up after work, take her out to do whatever was going on that night, and I intended on telling her how I felt. Well, the night came. I polished myself up and nervously drove over to her work and walked in. I got to the front counter and asked to see her and was told she had left for the night much earlier. After that, things were awkward between us, and I got the hint that she wasn't into me. Story 34. It wasn't a date, but once when I was 17, I got stood up by a friend. I wasn't like most teenagers. Didn't socialize much, didn't really have friends, didn't date, just stayed at home, worked, and hung out at my grandma's house. Anyway, a girl who I used to work with at another job was supposed to meet me after my shift at this movie theater, and we would see a movie and just hang out and stuff. I'd even told my coworkers why I was still there so everyone knew I wasn't some lame person who hung out at his job. Anyway, the time had come and gone, and gone, and gone. I kept calling her. This was before texting was popular, and wasn't getting any responses. Eventually, I had to call my parents to pick me up because I only had my provisional license and wasn't allowed to drive after 9 p.m. So not only was I humiliated in front of my coworkers who already thought it was kind of pathetic, my parents had to bear witness to this embarrassing and their subsequent pity that their only child literally had no friends. When I confronted her later, she said that she had forgotten and had gone to a family reunion. I think I've seen her once since then, and it was an accident. Story 35. It was the great year of 2006. Sophomore now. When Al Cole Al was in 4th grade. I was rocking a red DC shirt and camo shorts and my favorite pair of Vans shoes. I thought it looked super cool. I was playing Foursquare when a girl who I knew for years approached me and said another girl, Maddie, really liked me and wanted to be my girlfriend. I was like, holy cow, she's really cute. Say yes. The words that fell out of my mouth were something along the lines of, okay. And that's how I got my first girlfriend. But that's not the sad part. I didn't see her the rest of the day because we were in different classes and I went home and I was in a great mood the whole day. I went out to eat with my parents and told them the good news. They were all like, that's great, Al Cole Al. Anyways, I went to school the next day and I tried to sit next to her at the morning assembly and she shouted something along the lines of, ew, get away from me, schmuck. I was totally kidding. And then 2 schmucks laughed at me. I was crushed. I sat alone the whole day, even though I had a large group of friends and was semi-popular. Took me about a week to get over it. Then karma kicked in. A month or 2 later, right before Christmas break, she went down the roller slide and fell face first and busted her teeth out. Don't you think that's too overkill for karma? Story 36. I went on a date with someone from the internet. She claimed to have forgot or lost her wallet when the check came after she had ordered an expensive bottle of wine. 10 minutes later, she found it. I was stupid enough to keep talking to her after that. Later, when I ran into her with another girl I was seeing and we realized they knew each other, I proceeded to tell the girl I was seeing about that happening. At which point I remembered a story she had told me earlier about how she has a friend that just goes on dates for the free dinner or drinks. Screw that. Is it bad that I expected more from a self-proclaimed queer feminist? I thought only crappy straight girls did that kind of thing. Story 37. Earlier this year, I was at a party with a few friends trying to break a dry spell. Things are going pretty slow early in the night, so the friend that drove me there decides to leave. After a while, I'm approached by this random girl and we start chatting it up. There's a pretty decent connection there. As we spend the rest of the night talking and whatnot. But this time, it's getting pretty late and another friend I was supposed to ride home with also leaves the party. Now the only person I know in this house is this new girl. One thing leads to another and we begin making out. This goes on for a while before she asks me how I'm getting home. I'm thinking I'm in. I say that all my friends have left and I have no ride, and I am in. She says that she drove and we should get out of there. I'm so in. We walk to her car, falling over each other and kiss a bit in the front seat. Oh, I am in. As we're driving away, she's furiously texting away on her phone. Curious, I ask what's up. She says we're going to her friend's house because I live too far away and she doesn't take guys home. Wait, I thought I was in. No matter. It's only like 2 a.m. There's no way she makes me stay over at some random person's house. Wrong. We arrive at an empty house and she starts saying how these really nice guys live there and that they'll be cool with me staying over. She, on the other hand, is going home. Yes, I went from getting to her dropping me off at her gay friend's house. Needless to say, I bailed and never saw her again. Story 38. Very recently, a friend tried to hook me up with a friend of his. She was quite attractive. She did drop a weird comment here and there, but overall seemed like an okay person. Exchanged numbers and we agreed we should go out sometime soon. So I called a couple days later and asked her whether she'd like to go get a beer with me. She said sure. We agree on a time and place and I'm as happy as a clam. I arrive at the bar around 10 minutes beforehand. Naturally, she's not there, so I sit and wait. It's worth noting now that due to some weird stroke of luck, we'd exchanged our work phone numbers. I called her on it, and after about 30 minutes, she did not reply. I'm thinking, no biggie. I got stood up. I'll finish my beer and head out. I do as planned, and after about an hour, I'm home and I check my work phone, where she has called me a couple times. At this point, I'm thinking, God, I'm an idiot. She probably was having some trouble getting there, and now I'm the schmuck that doesn't reply to her calls. So I called her back to apologize for my stupidity. She picks up, and I'm like, listen, I was waiting for you at the bar, but I forgot my cell. Yada yada. I'm terribly sorry. And she goes, I kid you not. Oh, you went to the bar? I thought you were joking. I don't know what kind of people joke about this stuff. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.